Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 Commuter Benefits Update webinar. And this is Julie Bond with Best Workplaces for Commuters. I'm at the Center for Urban Transportation Research at the University of South Florida here in Tampa. And the BWC team is very excited to release an updated 2023 guide. So during the presentations, we invite you to ask us questions anytime in the Q&A box. And at the end of the webinar, we'll facilitate a Q&A session. So please enter your questions in anytime. And again, please feel free to chat with each other. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing. So BWC, just a little about BWC. BWC is an innovative membership program, but it really is more. So we provide national recognition for all of our members and the work they do, plus we offer many programs, publications, and networking opportunities. So we like to say collectively, together, we're all changing how America commutes. The Center for Urban Transportation Research, where we are located, was established in 1988, and again, we're located in Tampa, Florida at the University of South Florida. We're also home to the National Institute for Congestion Reduction, called NICER. Cutter offers research, outreach, training, and technical assistance at local, regional, and state levels. Please visit our website and find out more. And we're excited also to announce a new podcast and a new podcast series. So in collaboration with NICER and the University of South Florida's Zimmerman School of Advertising and Mass Communications, Cutter's first podcast called Out of My Lane began production in 2021. It's hosted by an award-winning journalist and USF professor, Wayne Garcia, and Out of My Lane explores the world of transportation. So we invite you to listen to this special Best Workplaces for Commuters podcast featuring Tom Harrington with Intuit. So go to cutter.usf.edu Out of My Lane and listen to what a great podcast for BWC. Also, I wanted to announce, please mark your calendars for this exciting event. Every year, we announce all of our new best workplaces for commuters, universities, sites, and partners. And so we invite you to register or mark your calendar for that on January 26, 2023. Okay, let's get to our show now. We have three exciting and knowledgeable speakers today with us, and it's my honor to introduce them. After introducing all three, we'll begin the presentations. So first, Movability is a co-host of this webinar, and we'll first hear from Kate Harrington. Kate oversees marketing, communications, and events as the Outreach and Engagement Manager at Movability, Central Texas' first and only transportation management association. She has a background as a reporter and ran her own communications business before starting with Movability in 2019. She has worked for the Austin Business Journal and written as a freelance reporter with work published by PBS NewsHour, USA Today, the Dallas Morning News, and the Texas Tribune. Kate has an undergraduate degree from Colby College in English and a master's degree in journalism from the University of Texas at Austin. Next, I'd like to introduce Phil Winters. He'll be following Kate, and he'll provide an overview of the updated Commuter Benefits Guide. Phil is the TDM Director at the Center for Urban Transportation Research. He has over 40 years of experience in TDM. His team has an extensive list of projects, from developing tools for influencing travel behavior to predicting impacts of TDM to providing guidance on incorporating TDM into the land development process. Also, his team has created patented software to track travel behavior on mobile devices. He created the leading industry listserv for transportation professionals that many of you are members of. That was created in 1998 and now has over 1,800 active members. And then we'll hear from Alecia McGuire. Alecia joined the Enterprise Rent-A-Car team in 2004 after graduating from Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Her career began in Beaumont, Texas, before moving into the greater Houston market with their business rental sales team. Her success in business partnerships led her to sales manager for that business rental team, where in 2019, she was selected as one of the top 40 women in travel by Global Business Travel Association. Alecia is based out of St. Louis at the Enterprise Holdings Global Headquarters, where she leads the Commute with Enterprise sales team across the southern parts of the US. If you meet Alecia, you can easily find out she is passionate about the impacts vanpooling has on business, their employees, plus the communities. She is energetic about helping her team be the best they can be. So I'm very excited to hear from our three speakers. And next, I'm going to turn the time over to Kate for the presentations you've all been waiting for. So Kate, take it away.
Thank you so much, Julie, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'll keep it brief so we can get to the really exciting stuff. But I just wanted to touch on movability and our work with Best Workplaces for Commuters. As Julie said, we are the first and only TMA in the Central Texas region. We're a little bit different than other TMAs across the country. We don't receive CMAQ funding. We don't have trip reduction mandates here. So we work with a variety of employers, both public partners, providers, and we try to do a lot of education, networking, programming events to really help introduce people to what TDM is and how it can benefit their business, their organizations, their clients and customers, and the region as a whole. Could you go ahead to the next slide, please, Christine? Thank you. And actually, we can keep going. One more, there we go. So I won't read every bullet point here, but again, we don't provide the same types of services that other TMAs might. I know they can look different depending on the region they're serving, but what we really do is we, again, try to make a lot of connections, and we're so pleased to be partners with Best Workplaces for Commuters. We also work with Commute with Enterprise. So it's a real collaboration in this region to move things forward and grow our region and our opportunities for everyone here without growing traffic congestion as well. I'll just call out a couple of things that we do that we have going on right now. We run a micro grant program called Go Grant that gives up to $7,500 in funding to employers of various sizes to help them implement mobility solutions. Could be anything from bike racks to transit passes or vanpool programs. And we also oversee the Get There Central Texas ride sharing and ride matching platform, which is a great way to incentivize and encourage commuters and employers to try out different commutes. Next, please. This is just a very brief snapshot. If you can read all of this, your eyes are much better than mine, but just an overview of who our members are in the Austin area. Next slide, please. And why our members join. Again, they're not compelled to, so they come to us voluntarily to both be community stewards and to see the benefits that TDM can bring to their organizations. Next slide. And I mentioned we have worked with Best Workplaces for Commuters for a number of years, and we really work closely with our employer members to help them make that list and implement those TDM improvements that benefit their employees. So we will make sure that the application process is smooth and easy for them, and then we really celebrate them here in Austin. Next slide, please. Really brief snapshot of how we work with one of our members and Best Workplaces for Commuters. The Downtown Austin Alliance is one of our founding partners, so they've been with us from the start for the last decade. But they support us, but we like to think we hopefully support them a little bit as well. We've worked with them to do individual commute chats with their employees, to do employee mapping, to hold gamification and incentive challenges around trying different commutes. And these are some of the things that they offer to their own employees to really make commutes great for them, and that helps them make that BWC list. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that we really like to celebrate the employers in our region who are on that list and work hard to put TDM into practice. So one of our big flagship events that we do every February is the Mobility Breakfast and Awards Ceremony. It's a great networking opportunity, and it's also a chance for us to really award and applaud and recognize those employers moving the region forward. Next slide, please. This is just a little bit more contact information. So if anyone wants to delve more into movability, who we are and what we do, that is how you can find us. Not with me today, but a big part of our efforts is our program manager, Alex Boat, whose information is also on here. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining again. And with that, I will turn things over to Phil.
Thank you, Kate. Quite a bit of activity you have going on in Austin. So again, thanks to Best Workplaces for Commuters for kind of organizing this and getting the cooperation of both our speakers today. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of Qualified Transportation Fringe Benefits. Next, please. And then, but before I get started, I'll talk a little bit about the Commuter Benefits Guide, the brand new one that Julie mentioned earlier for 2023. Next, please. Here's a kind of a summary of what's in that guide. So there's some of the detail, there's some of the facts that we'll use in the upcoming slides are contained in the document, such as information about who's actually using commuter benefits and in their profiles, a series of frequently asked questions, about 20 some of those, for example, and also some kind of 8 steps for starting a commuter benefit guide. Next, please. Now, I say this, now I didn't stay at a particular hotel last night, but just to let you know that this is kind of our tax and legal advice disclaimer. I'm not a tax expert or an accounting or a lawyer, so just be sure that this information is for this presentation is for informational purposes. Next, please. So I'm going to quickly go over what are qualified transportation fringe benefits. We'll also refer to them synonymously with commuter benefits. We'll talk a little bit about what's new for 2023 and what difference does it make if people offer qualified transportation fringe benefits. Try to give you a couple perspectives on that. And I kind of already went over a little bit of what's on the Commuter Benefits Guide already. So there are various types of non-taxable fringe benefits, of being which qualified transportation fringe benefits is one. So for example, the no additional cost services are things like where the employer that might be on, say, an airline provides a discount or access to free seats on an airplane to their employees. Qualified employee discounts are also go to things like we get 20% discount on up to 20% discount on some products and services that they do provide to the public. And de minimis fringe benefits are things, say, like such as like holiday gifts they may give to employees, or even emergency ride home program could potentially qualify as a de minimis fringe benefit based on its relative value, low cost, and also the frequency is not so high to make it a non-de minimis fringe benefit. So anyway, so those are the other types. So this is one of the types of non-taxable fringe benefits. Next, please. Now, what it does is employers can subsidize employees' parking, their transit fare, their van pool costs, and previously were able to reimburse bicycle commuting tax free as it was initially set up. I'll touch on the bicycle benefit that is no longer tax-free for at least for a couple years. It allows commuters to use pre-tax dollars to pay for parking, transit, and van pooling, but not bicycle commuting. And the last 2 bullets are perhaps the takeaways here. One, this program requires employer involvement. That does not necessarily mean that they have to subsidize the benefit. That just means that they have to work with their employees to provide the benefit. An employee cannot get this particular qualified transportation fringe benefit without some level of employer involvement. And finally, the Qualified Transportation Fringe Benefit is not a federal tax credit. Now, there may be some states that offer some tax credits associated with these similar benefits, but from a federal side, it's not a federal tax credit where the value comes off their tax bill. Next, please. There are a variety of different modes that can be used, including bus, rail, ferry, on their transit, and a variety of the commuter highway vehicles or / van pools on the far right side. And also I'll point to the bottom that under certain circumstances, what used to be referred to as Uber Pool and Lyft line are potentially qualified as well. Next, please. So a transit pass, it takes a variety of, can take a variety of forms, including a pass, a fare card, a voucher, etc., where it allows the employee to ride free of charge or at a reduced rate, either on mass transit or in a vehicle that seats at least 6 adults, not including the driver, if the person is in the business of transporting persons for pay or hire. And that's where the Uber and Lyft options pop up. And finally, the mass transit may be also publicly or privately operated and include those other modes. And there's a reference to the employer's tax guide that IRS publishes every year. Next, please. Now, referred to a commuter highway vehicle or a van pool, it's a little bit different. When most of us talk about this type of program, we use the shorthand van pooling, but it really is a highway vehicle with a seating capacity of at least six adults. So it's a 7-passenger vehicle where at least 80% of the vehicle's mileage for years expect to be for transporting people to and from work. And on the trips during which those number of employees transported is at least 1/2 of the adult seating capacity of the vehicle, excluding the driver. So at least 4 people in a 7-passenger vehicle would qualify. So that's a commuter highway vehicle or van pool. Next, please. And again, essentially, you might consider those large carpools if you have 4 people in a 7-passenger vehicle, but it has to have at least 4 and meet the 80% mileage requirement. Next, please. Now, what's new in 2023? The big news is because it's built into there's a cost of living element built into the annual rates. It took a big jump because of inflation, going from $280 per month in 2022 to $300 per month for transit or van pools, and same with parking, all those benefits. Now, there are some exceptions. There's really no tax-free benefit for a 2- or 3-person carpool. There's no longer a tax-free benefit for reimbursing bicyclists and or pedestrians. And there are some groups that are excluded from this, including partners and S corp folks, S corporation folks that have more than 2% shareholding. Next, please. So $300 is the big change. And I just put in here unchanged because this has existed for the last several years. The qualified bicycle commuting reimbursement that was at $20 a month up to $240 a year from a reimbursement basis is continued to be excluded. So it's been suspended basically through 2025 at this point. Now it would take legislation to come back before then, but right now bicycle benefit is not tax-free to employees. Next, please. Okay, thanks. So it gives a combination of how it can be delivered. The employer can pay for the employee's parking, transit, or van pool fares, can allow the employees to use pre-tax income basically to pay for those same parking, transit, or van pool fares, or it could even use a combination of the two methods. So maybe the employee pays half and the employer pays half, as an example. Next. Again, no tax is paid on the value of the benefit to up to that tax-free limit, and the employer is not required to provide that up to the limit of $300 a month. So, for example, they could decide it's $100 or $50. The employer makes that choice. And of course, employers can actually provide more than that tax-free limit, but the amount over that tax-free level or the $300 becomes taxable to the worker. Next. Again, the employer is not required to provide the transit pass benefit, excluding any areas that might be subject to local or state transit benefit ordinances that do require it. But from a federal level, employers are not required to provide it. Here's some of the other flexibility that's built into the program. You can give it to any or all employees. So, for example, we could give it to employees in St. Louis, our employees in St. Louis, but in Tampa, we won't give it to them for it may be a recruitment retention issue, whatever. The employers can decide who gets it. They can again, they can give the employees any amount tax-free up to the monthly amount, and if the employer can, of course, has the freedom to decide if and when to increase the benefit as the benefit goes up. And lastly, that they can provide the transit benefits in lieu of compensation if they wanted to. Next, please. Another difference from employers of what this program offers over some other traditional benefit programs are things like they can use similar payroll deduction mechanisms as they may be using already. So they don't have to reinvent the wheel. There is no plan filing required. There's no form like a 1040 form or a W-9 form, for example, that they need to complete. Now, that doesn't mean they don't do record keeping. It just means there's no set IRS form for them to do it. There's no irrevocable elections, too, that if people made entered into the program and the employer could allow them to exit the program whenever they care to choose so. Some employers, I think, opt to have a kind of an open enrollment period, or maybe not just annually, maybe it's quarterly, just to minimize the level of effort. And finally, there's no use it or lose it rule. Those that are on like a medical reimbursement account know that if you don't incur the money set aside for, say, medical expenses, you will lose that money. That doesn't apply here, that you take out, say, $200 a month and for a transit pass, and then in August you went to Italy for a month, so you didn't use it. You don't lose that later. It still rolls over, so it's still in your account. Now, who has access to this subsidized commuting? The Bureau of Labor Statistics publishes a national compensation survey annually, and that's where these figures come from. And this data is also, summary is also included in more detail in the guide, the Commuter Benefits guide that we mentioned earlier. So about 12% of state and local governments have access to the subsidized commuting. It doesn't mean that they're using it, and actually state government employees by themselves are over 20%. And then private employees and civilian employees, which is really kind of the merger of both the top two entries, are both at 9%. Those percentages are creeping up slowly over time. Almost seems about the equivalent of about 1% a year recently. Next. I just want to point out too, the assumption is a lot of giving access to this may be benefiting the low wage folks, but the reverse is true. The highest 21% of the highest 10% of wages, average wages, receive access to the subsidized commuting. We're only 3% of the lowest 10% of average wages receive access to the subsidized commuting. Next. Next, please. Thank you. I know this has come up several times when we've talked to commuter assistance programs where we've talked to employers and they're concerned about their liability. Now, this will vary by state, but for example, in Florida, we have state regs that basically say the employers are not liable for injuries and damages sustained by being used in a traditional ride-sharing arrangement. And also, they're not liable simply because the employer provides information or incentives. So providing ride matching assistance, for example, or financial incentives, just for encouraging people to participate in those types of arrangements. Ride sharing in this term is implied basically carpooling and vanpooling. So you could check your state code to see if you have something similar to that. That tends to be, if you're talking to employers, that may be one of their concerns, or one of the concerns up the chain of command to get approval to implement a commuter benefits program. Next, please. Jenna, what difference does it make in terms of ridership? Because certainly that's important to many of us right here. In terms of commuter benefits, generally increase transit ridership, but not in all cases. You know, just by offering the benefit alone won't fill the gap of say a poorly served transit service, or areas that it's in a community that it doesn't touch. And then the effectiveness is also based on factors such as, of course, the level of the employer payment, perhaps, and what other supporting programs. As many of us recognize, things like guaranteed ride home program, emergency ride home program, contribute to the concern employees may have about being stranded associated with using those models. So together, all these things and programs work together to make it work. Next. And also what we found in it, the research is admittedly a little dated, but a comprehensive survey by the Transit Cooperative Research Program found that basically the majority of the new transit riders that had access to this type of benefit had commuted to work alone. So it is encouraging people to share the ride, either in transit or vanpooling. And there are also some surveys that found it seemed to also induce changes in commuting and non-commuting behavior. Things like an Eco Pass or U-Pass, which is offered at universities where somebody just shows their ID. Now, once they start using it, saying getting to work or getting to school, now they might use it for going shopping or going to a social event. So there are additional benefits that have positive impacts on ridership. Next, please. We did a kind of a quick analysis of those that are familiar with the National Transit Database. Transit agencies and vanpool operators, most of them, not all of them, report their basically passenger miles and vehicle revenue miles to the National Transit Database. That data is used for a variety of purposes, including allocating funding and returning. If you took the 7 vanpool programs in Florida, for example, we estimate there's at least about $5 million more in federal funds returning to Florida in 2022 than would have otherwise happened without those vanpool programs. So that money can actually then be used, of course, to continue to support the vanpool program and or being used to support the local transit agency. Next, please. So I know one of the questions is likely to be, how do I get a hold of this commuter benefits guide with all this type of information in? Oh, here's the link, bestworkplaces.org/commuter-benefits-guide-ebook. If you go there, you'll determine how to request your copy today, and Best Workplaces for Commuters members will receive a free copy, ebook copy. So with that, here's my contact info, and I'd like to turn it over to Alecia McGuire with with Enterprise.
Well, Alecia is sharing her screen, Phil. Great presentation. We have questions coming in. So just a reminder, we have the Q&A where you can type your question in, and some of those have already been answered, so you can look at the answer questions. And then I'm noticing there's a really great chat going on. So we have, a really large group here today, and it looks like you're all chatting and sharing information, which is really great. So again, we will facilitate the open questions at the end of Alecia's presentation. So keep asking questions or please keep chatting. And we'll now turn the time over to Alecia.
Thanks, Julie. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. It
Looks
says
great.
It says it's sharing, but it didn't have a border, so I wanted to make sure. So thanks for the time today. Great to see everybody. I'm really excited to share just information about how do you partner with your employees to help them get to work. I'll start off with just a thought on vanpool, and that's that in this space, and I think that Phil just spoke to it, how few employers provide some sort of commuter benefit. And that thought is, historically, how you got to work was your responsibility. Employers were going to stay out of it. They were like, you show up at this time, you leave at this time, figure it out after and before. But as more companies are looking at how do I run the best business, they realize if I take great care of my employees, they're going to in turn take great care of profitability and most importantly, the customers who help that business run. And so those forward-thinking organizations are realizing, how can I do it different? What can I do for my employees? And, you know, as I think about the world today and different businesses and impacts, and we're going to talk about that, there's really three pieces that you'll hear me mention throughout the next several minutes. And the first one is return to work. We've all made it through the pandemic, and hopefully this is a new norm that's a better norm that we had pre-pandemic. So as you're getting people back to the office, there's some anxiety there. What about the time that I reclaimed when I started working from home? What about the fact that so many people changed companies? They don't know people in the office anymore. So how do you create a networking piece of your business by helping people connect with one another? And then the equity and transportation, I think Stacy just mentioned this in the chat a little while ago, but we're seeing more and more blue collar organizations say, how do I step up? How do I do it different? And equity and transportation impacts communities from coast to coast and around the world. And so to me, as we think about companies changing their philosophy, it's how do I do it different? And transportation is something that many organizations haven't looked at before. So as we think about what's the cost, and you know, there's the great tax breaks and the way that you can reduce your payroll taxes, utilizing some of the tools and the technique that Phil just talked about. But there's some other ways too. We are fortunate to partner with some incredible transit agencies across the United States. And for any of you on here, thank you for your partnership. What you do for your communities and for our vanpool participants is incredible. But a lot of people don't realize vanpool is actually an extension of public transportation. So no different than our transit agencies are essentially subsidizing the fixed route buses in your area because of the reduced cost that participants actually pay or organizations have with their bus passes. Vanpool is no different. What's really neat about vanpool, though, is some of the small group control but flexibility that the participant members have. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. The one thing that I do like to talk about is that when we start talking about the funding and get into these pieces here, the cost in our initial conversations is not something that we look to employers to provide from a financial contribution. We really want to partner with people and say, you know, tell us about your business. It's 2023 soon. What are the goals that you're focused on? What are the challenges your organization is facing? What are the initiatives? You know, what are those priorities look like? I think we're all doing calendar year planning. So what does that look like for a business? And it's going to have nothing to do with transportation, but it's looking at those things and saying, gosh, you've been spending $6,000 to $8,000, which is the national average for training, for recruitment and for training to get new people on board. What if you were able to drive down your turnover rate and now you can move that money? So that's just one example, but it's a challenge where your turnover has nothing to do with transportation, but how do you set yourself apart from the company down the road that maybe keeps recruiting your employees? Do y'all like my new lighting that I have here? So again, we want to talk about what's going on with your business and then how do we help you do so. So in this example here, you can see we've got a vanpool, and please know these are just example numbers. Don't start writing them down and thinking, okay, this is what I'm doing. Let us help you because it can vary in both directions across the country today. So we've got a vanpool group. They've got 6 people. And the local transit partner is providing a $500 subsidy to that vanpool. Now we look at the cost that's remaining and we work with the organization on those challenges and go, you know, if you were able to earmark this money over here, maybe you contribute, you bring that down, and then the participants pay the difference. You can see in my example here that the employer has decided to pay 50%, and the employees in the van have decided to pay the rest of the 50%. That breaks down to $17 a week for each of those 6 people who are riding in this van. Extremely affordable when we talk about blue collar folks, but this spans the gamut of all of the levels of people. Historically, van pooling really started in that urban metropolitan downtown market. So everyone can van pool, and they do it for different reasons. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. There's significant cost savings when you talk about an individual joining the van pool. And if you look at this, we can talk about the impacts that pre-tax payroll benefit that Phil talks so much about is going to help us. So just a great opportunity. And I think that the couple of things here is there's no set cost. There's no set percentage. It's all about consulting with you all to help you figure out what's best for your individual company. So I wanted to almost take a step back. We've talked a lot about van pool, but what is van pool? Like, what does that really mean? If anyone is somewhat newer to the concept, but thinking about it again, a little bit different. So the basics of van pool, it's a turnkey program. It's a late model vehicle that includes full maintenance, comprehensive insurance. We have a fuel solution that we can provide to the participants that allows them to share in the gas in a very easy manner. We give a guaranteed ride home program, and it's got 24-hour roadside assistance. And I don't want to gloss over guaranteed ride home. One of the big stressors is, what if my kids get sick? What if I have an emergency and I'm at work and I'm a van pool user? Well, that's where guaranteed ride home comes in and helps you with a way to leave at that time and then get back into the cycle of your van pool program. The flexibility of these groups, with them being able to maneuver their schedules, what makes sense for the group, and then the flexibility of a month-to-month agreement when you join a van pool really helps people know that they can test this out, they can try this, and the group can really own the rules of the van pool and what that looks like. The overall cost savings is fantastic for these individual riders, or even how we impact or how we can implement the pre-tax benefit for the organization. But, you know, I'll tell you, one of my favorite things in learning about van pool and knowing people who do it is that connectivity. More companies today are saying that the employees are wanting to spend their time in the office socializing, connecting with people. They've been working at home for a long time. They don't have that business network outside of the office. And so while they're coming in and they are doing their work, it's one of the most important things that's happening in offices, especially those who are returning to work at this time. So as we talk about these people, the individual employees all have great concepts of why they want to do it, or which of the different benefits is going to pique their interests a little bit. For businesses, though, again, we've talked about it earlier, it could be whatever your priorities and goals and challenges are that you're trying to overcome is why you want to get involved. Some of those could be the recruitment example that I used. It could be parking challenges. It could be traffic at the gate or the entrance to your office building. Sustainability and ESG definitely come into the conversation for a lot of organizations. So while we're not diving into those today, because we know that the business partners on today's call are really looking at how do I help my employee, putting yourself in their frame of reference of what's it like to van pool? Why would I want to do this? I think there's so many neat things here. So engaged. If you've got a group of people who live in the same community but work in different departments, they don't know each other. So it gives them that sense of connectivity. They're forming this community within your business. But now they've also had their coffee talk. Instead of riding to work together and you don't have maybe the music on to get going that morning, you're just talking to people. Hey, did you guys see the new business that's opening up down the street? Or, hey, whose kids go to this school? I saw that they're doing a fundraiser. So you got those, just communication juice is flowing as you get to the office. As I mentioned multiple times, the connectivity piece is just so much, so impactful to getting people back to the office today. Over the last few years, we've all spent and seen more people talk about mental health, and communication and connectivity is an important part of that. But on the personal side, have you ever thought about how many emails you could check if someone drove you to work each day? I will admit very quickly that I would love for somebody to drive me to work. I could get caught up on some emails and ready to go. Those kinds of watching TV, reading books, really still reclaiming that time while connecting with others is a very valuable piece to how people see their time in a van pool benefit them, not just the cost piece. And more of the new employees entering the workforce today care about the environment and are looking for businesses that are supporting environmental issues and sustainability initiatives, and then how they can do it themselves too. So there's a lot of reasons for the employers, but there's even more when it comes to personally impacting your employees when you think about them getting, or when they think about themselves getting into the van pool. And that's where your van pool partner is so important. Looking at, who's that local person in your community that you can engage with, to know the specifics about transit agencies, to know the specifics about your traffic. Through mapping your employees, you're able to say, hey, here's the people who live in this community. Let's bring them together. And that is what's so important. Is I may want to do this so I can watch my show on TV on the way to work with my earbuds in so I don't bother my other van pool participants. But somebody else may say, I haven't figured out how to create something new for 2023. And my New Year's resolution is all about sustainability. So I'm going to do something different. Those two people may have different reasons for joining van pool, but the secret to getting them to do so is sitting in that room with one another going, okay, if 5 of these people sign up, like I'd ride to work with them each day, because they can now start to visualize best, not just what their own personal reason is, but who's that group, what's that going to look like each day. So as we wrap up, I wanted to share these couple of quotes that you can see here, because I think it really drives home the differences in each person. You've got someone who wants to just unwind in the van. They love that they're not driving every single day. There's cost savings and there's connectivity. This right one, I can't share who it's from, and not because I don't have the authorization to, but it is from a blue collar worker. They text someone on my team this past year and said, thank you. By bringing this service to my company, you probably saved my job. So that one's just a heartwarming one, because we really do in the TDM world change people's lives through transportation equity. So happy to engage more after today's call, but I'll just wrap up with saying again, we don't think that you necessarily need to fund the whole program, but there's reasons that some organizations do, and you finding out where that number sits is something that we would love to talk with you about. To Phil's point earlier, you've got pre-tax benefits that you can utilize. That can be all to the employee, or it can be whatever mix that looks like. There's also the opportunity for you to just directly fund the program. And as long as we stay within that $300 limit, then you're not having to report that as W-2 wages on your employee's check. So let us help you. If you'd like to have a conversation, we're always available to do so. And happy to answer any Q&A as well after today. I'll leave this here for just a moment, and happy to share my information, and everyone else on the team has it as well, if you'd like to connect afterwards. So thanks, and Julie, I'll turn it back to actually Christine.
Well, thank you very much, Alecia. Yes, Christine will take over for the screen. And I'd like to invite Phil and Kate back to the session. If you could turn your cameras back on. Again, Alecia, I love what you said. We really are changing people's lives by making their commute better. And I think everyone on this call should really feel great about what they're doing, because we are making a huge impact collectively by what we are all doing as TDM professionals. And so I'd like to direct your attention to the question and answer box. Phil has been busy answering some questions, so some of those questions are already answered. He has typed those in, so you can go ahead and read those. And we do have quite a few more questions in the queue, so we'll go ahead and start our Q&A session. So the first question we have here is, how is Commute with Enterprise navigating hybrid office schedules? So that's for you, Alecia.
Well, it is definitely a great conversation that we're having in the building, and a huge technology investment by the Taylor families who own our company. But we're moving our technology into the hybrid world. I think everybody has to. So in 2023, we'll be rolling out several new initiatives, as well as a interfacing platform for customers. So my best answer is call your local commute person, but we're working with them today to manually do some things, and incredible technology ahead that you'll want to see, because the previews are pretty good.
Kate, did you have anything to add to that about what's going on in Texas?
I can't speak with the level of specificity to what different providers are able to do, but absolutely hybrid work. I agree with Alecia. It's changing the equation, and I know the dust is still settling a little bit and new patterns are emerging, but absolutely, based on what we've seen among our members here in Central Texas, it is a prevalent trend, and it definitely offers some challenges, but also some opportunities around better commute solutions for everyone. I would just caution, I don't think anyone on this call falls into this category, but I would caution people against thinking, oh, so many people are teleworking or doing hybrid work, just congestion just isn't a problem. It's back, and probably greater than ever in the Austin area, because so many people and employers have continued moving here even during the pandemic, which is a great problem to have. But you know, there's definitely still a need for those TDM solutions, and you know, getting those single occupancy vehicles off the road whenever possible.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, another question we have for Alecia is, how are others managing to maintain their vanpools at 50% seats occupied with so many teleworking 1 to 3 days per week? And this is a question we do hear quite a bit.
So I think that the first step is looking at your employees' schedules and helping bring together the right groups of, you know, who's coming out on these days versus the others. Constantly, you know, I mentioned mapping earlier today, constantly remapping. Your workforce is changing. I know Kate, our sales executive in Austin, has been working with one of our large partners there and having conversations during peak times of, yeah, I've got this particular van pool. How do I help plug you in, versus always looking at getting a new van pool created. And then the other part is going to be the way that new technology that we're investing in is going to work, is going to have the right type of scheduling and algorithms to do so. And then we've got several groups, specifically in Colorado, and I think there's one in Houston that I'm thinking of. So I'm saying I think because I don't want to misquote myself or misspeak. Where the van pool is overutilizing the seats. So they have 10 members and they utilize some different ways to do it themselves. And I think that just goes back to organizations being involved so that you're helping market and promote the program internally to drive that interest.
Okay, great. Another question we have, does Commute with Enterprise offer an emergency ride home program or guaranteed ride home program?
So we do, in most of our markets, it's through the local TMA or transit agency partner. So that's a best conversation that's had one-on-one with the local person. But yes, there's a lot of different solutions that vary from market to market.
Okay, great. And yes, that's also a requirement of Best Workplaces for Commuters membership. And Kate or Phil, did you have anything else to add to that about emergency ride home?
I would just add that our Get There Central Texas platform also offers an emergency ride home option. So yeah, they're great added benefits to have.
Yeah, and I think several programs are taking different approaches to the emergency ride home, guaranteed ride home. Reimbursing rides for reimbursable rides, and in the Orlando area, for example, is operating it a little bit differently than we've expected, and some are leaning on the transportation network companies to be a primary provider for the service. So
Great. Next, there's a lot of buzz about electric vehicles, and we get a lot of questions about EV fleets. So this question is specifically, will Enterprise be offering electric vehicles as part of their fleet to offer to customers?
Absolutely. We do have electric vehicles in our Enterprise Holdings fleet today. As Phil mentioned on the definition of van pooling, the seatbelt requirements, there are not currently vehicles that are at a cost-effective price point to do so. But in the research that we've done, there are many that are coming, I would say, in the net by 2024, 2025, and there's others that have better numbers, but those vehicles are coming, and yes, we are committed to do so. The one thing that I would keep in mind for anyone that's looking at those is, do you have the infrastructure to support it? Because there's really a few different pieces when it comes to the types of vehicles and all, but also specific to van pooling, that one being the availability and the price point. Van pooling is about saving a lot of different things, including money. So if it's too high of a cost, then nobody's going to do it. The other is the sustainability piece, and what do you do with those batteries? And then before you've got to figure out the batteries, you've got to figure out the charging. And so actually, I really think that van poolers are a great partner in the sense of they're driving the same route every day, so they can plan for that. Do I charge at work? Do I charge at wherever I park my car after work? So I think they're a great partner for us when we get to that space. But right now it's availability, and we're already looking at the other impacts that it will have before we even get to the availability piece.
Great. This is a question for all three panelists. How has commuting in your area changed since the pandemic? So Kate, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I can go ahead and jump in. Oh boy, that's the $1 million question. Well, I referenced before, I think there were a lot of predictions during the early days of the pandemic that, congestion will go away. This, certainly not. Boy, we are still seeing a lot of drive alone commutes in our region. There's certainly more teleworking and more hybrid schedules. It's undeniable that that's happening. And you can even see, on certain days, the fluctuation of, how many people are waiting in line at the popular lunch spots downtown, or, how many people are on some of the more crowded corridors. But how it's changed other than that, I still think, and I'm speaking really just for our region, I can't speak for others. There's still that default mindset around drive alone commutes. Our City of Austin leadership has done a fabulous job of expanding our protected bike lane network and trying to connect more and more pieces of that so that people do have that active option. Certainly we're starting to see transit ridership come back up a little bit. So, yeah, some big changes, some not as big, as I mentioned previously as well. There are just so many more residents here now over the last few years. As you all are probably aware, Austin is a very fast growing city. So that adds to the equation as well. Anyway, hopefully I answered that and didn't just muddy the waters.
Thanks, Kate. Alecia or Phil?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that, Julie. I've been running some of the numbers of the recently released American Community Survey for the counties in Florida, for example. So Hillsborough County, which is basically Tampa, not Tampa Bay, but just Tampa. We saw from 2019 to 2021, the drive alone rate actually went from about 78% in 2019 to 67% in 2021. So the drive alone rate fell quite a bit. Transit was basically a wash. There was no statistical difference, except that we essentially was 1% of the commuters in 2019 and 0.8% in 2021. And finally, what you would expect, the work at home, telework type of folks, including the teleworkers, went from about 8.2% to 22.3% in Hillsborough County. So, and that's those similar trends are observed, though I've noticed that there are some counties where even the carpool share didn't change a whole lot. Larger carpools fell a little bit quicker than the two-person carpools in some communities, but yeah, the American Community Survey is published the 2021 5-year data recently, so that would be a good source for people if you want to see what your current mode share is.
So I think that leads to probably what part of what I was thinking was, so many people went to working from home. We saw the car market do incredible things. And so some couples or families sold one of their vehicles. Now that they're being asked to come back to work, how do they manage that? So we're not there yet, but I think 2023 is going to continue to show more people wanting you in the office, even if it is hybrid, because of that connectivity and that sense of community and really driving company culture. Like if you've never met people you work with, how do you have a company culture? And that doesn't mean you can't, it can be a challenge. And so I think that we haven't quite seen what the return to work is going to do as more companies do it. The biggest two changes I would say is that we're seeing a significant increase in the blue collar and the rural space. And not just from a participant and an employer level, but also the reason why. And the reason why is that transportation equity that we've talked about, but it's also an incredibly competitive marketplace for those employees. And so if your neighbor down the street keeps recruiting your people for an hour, for a dollar or two more per hour, what are you going to do to be different, stand out? And so we're actually using van pooling as a recruitment tool in that blue collar space.
Great answers, and thank you so much. It looks like we have time for just one more question. And Phil, you did get a question. You might want to just type that in. What's the name of the mode split study resource? If you want to provide that resource.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, and the final question we have here is there evidence to suggest that offering free gas or tolls in addition to free lease of a van pool vehicle increases van pool program participation? So maybe Alecia or Phil, you both want to answer that if you do have evidence or not.
I don't have any statistics on that. If anyone wants to follow up with me, I'm happy to check with a few other folks. You know, I think as we think about gas fluctuates. So by providing gas, I think you can help give your employees a specific set price. So there could be some benefit there. And then also tolls. I know in Georgia, their van pool program includes the Peach Pass. Cute name, makes sense for Georgia. So they may even have some stats on surveys or something that they've done, but I'm happy to check if anyone wants to ask me after today.
Great.
I'm sorry, I was trying to look up that URL. What was the question again?
Let's see. we were talking about whether tolls and other financial resources increased van pooling, and if you had specific statistics on that. So if you had evidence to suggest that that increased van pool participation.
Nothing springs to mind. It doesn't mean it's not out there, but that's an interesting proposition.
Yeah, we can see what we can find on that.
You kind of naturally think, you know, as costs go up for commuting, it gets people searching for alternatives, especially if it's a long distance. But Alecia would be in a better position, I think, to answer that anyway.
Okay, well, it is 4 o'clock and we've answered all the questions in the queue, and there's still a great chat going on. So again, I just want to thank all of our speakers, Alecia, Kate, and Phil. Excellent session. And this has been recorded. And so we will send out the link to the recording and get that out to you soon. And I want to say thanks to Christine, who is behind the scenes. Hi, Christine. Thank you so much for taking care of all the technical part of this webinar. And again, a very well attended webinar. Thank you to everyone who attended, and we hope you have a happy holiday.
Bye. Happy holiday.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.